Well, I'm going to start this episode by apologising because in the last episode I said I was going to work in the engine bay and do a whole bunch of things like drain the clutch fluid, replace the clutch line, change the oil pressure sensor, valve cover gasket, and I didn't get to most of that because, well, I was tired and I wanted a break, so I stopped. So today I'm going to carry on with those things I was supposed to do in the last episode, keep working away at the engine bay. I'm going to start off with an easy one. Down here is an oil pressure switch which merely operates the light for the dash. It's not actually for a gauge. And as you can see, currently the light does not illuminate. So it could be the bulb in the cluster or it could be the sensor. First step, I'm going to replace the sensor anyway, so we'll see if that fixes it.
A few moments later.
So I've got it out. I don't believe this is the correct oil pressure switch because it only had 1.5 or 2 threads of engagement. So I've put the other one in, which went in the entire way. Now we'll go and have a look to see if the light comes on. Okay, so the oil pressure light's on. We'll see if we can get it to go off with the car running. Straight away, look at that. Perfect. Now, next item is the coil. The coil does seem to be working quite fine, but it looks a bit tatty and old. I want to make sure it's generating the most amount of spark possible. So I'm going to replace it with this one. Disconnect the battery first. It's always a good plan. Oh, that is split wide open. It's not the easiest to see, but the steering coupler there's got some splits in it, so that's likely to be no good, like all the other rubber components. Now it's going to be pretty hard to see, but because I replaced the seal on that steering box, I have a feeling I've lost some oil. I cannot see any oil at all, and it should be filled up to the hole there. So looks like I've lost a fair bit. In order to fill the steering box, I'm just going to use this squeeze bottle with the correct grade oil in it. Worm my way down in here. I can keep an eye on the level and fill it slowly. Let's turn the steering wheel, work it in a bit if it needs it. Yeah, looks like it's got room for a bit more oil. Next task, I'm going to try and pull out that steering coupler, but because of where it's situated, I'm probably not going to be able to show you. I had to drop the steering box to get this out, and as you can see, it is starting to tear apart. It's quite old. That is just, yeah, not great. Unfortunately, I couldn't really show the replacement of that steering coupler because, as you could see from the other shots, it was really hard to get a decent angle in there. I needed to drop the steering box to make enough room because the steering wheel bracket has a coupler with some bolts and the steering box has 2 more. When they line up like that, you can't really separate them enough to get the coupler out. So that was a unexpected job. And also there's a wire added into there because the rubber acts like an insulator, and that's required to join the metal of the column to the steering box. So there's electrical continuity, so the horn button can actually work. So it's important not to forget that. Well, now that that's in, next job is to work on the clutch. So first I'm going to drain it and then remove the hose and change it over for one that isn't cracked. Where am I going to sit this? That'll do. It's just a can there to hold the dirty old fluid, which I'm going to draw out with a little syringe. Get this little float out. It's quite dark, old fluid. Not really sure what the purpose of this little float is for the clutch master. If anyone knows, leave it down in the comments so I can actually find out what it's for. Now I'm just going to climb underneath, open the bleed screw on the slave and let that fluid drain out, just to try and get the fluid out of that hose so I don't make a mess when I do take it off. That's one end of the line free. well, that is, yeah. I mean, it's old. It's sort of what you should expect. The new one appears to be a bit longer, but that shouldn't matter too much. Of course, nothing ever really works perfectly. There's a step in this hose which allows this groove to sit in further so the retaining clip can actually go in, and this one doesn't have that. So I need to scratch my noggin and think of a solution for this. Well, it's not pretty, but some work with an angle grinder has sort of evened that up. So I'm going to run with that and hope for the best. Before I go too far, let's see if I can actually get the retainer in. Brand new bottle of some nice .4. Alright, so I've got to climb underneath the car to open the bleed nipple, and I've enlisted the help of one of the small humans I'm responsible for to operate the pedal. I'll be instructing her to push the pedal down and release it as required, and it goes a little bit something like this. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Cool. That's it. Now I just need to do the same thing for the brakes. Finally, brakes. Hopefully nothing leaks. I'm going to fill this up and start with the furthest away spot, which is the passenger rear, and then driver side rear, and then bleed the fronts, get all the air out, and hopefully have working brakes for the first time in this car since I've owned it. It doesn't matter that that's really full because we are going to be losing a lot of fluid. So I've jumped forward through the brake bleeding process. It's all done. Pedals firm, car stops. And that's one more main hurdle that was required to be overcome to be able to get this thing back on the road. These were only lightly tightened just to keep these arms on here until the new ones arrived. Hopefully just a light tap. Nope. Even though I only lightly tightened it, I can't believe I have to use this tool to separate them off. Well, that kind of worked. New tie rod ends. These new tie rods and ends come with grease nipples. Fit those, grease the ends before fitting it to the car. It's really good when they don't cross thread, I've got to say. So the tightening torque for these is about 35 to 50 foot-pounds, so I've set it to 50. And I don't even think that'll fit there. Click. Well, that's the tie rod arms fitted to both sides. I had to modify those ones because they were too long. Apparently they're the correct part, but obviously they weren't. So after I cut the tube shorter, I'm now able to get the wheels aligned correctly. Because everything's shifted a bit, I'm going to have to set it up and then take the steering wheel off and recenter that because everything's out of whack. Now I haven't tightened the clamps on those arms yet, so I've still got the ability to adjust them. Before I do that, I need to buy some supplies and just do a very Bogan-ish wheel alignment. You'll see.
The next day.
So in order to get a wheel alignment good enough to get us down the road until we can get to a shop, I simply use a string line. Now in order to run the string line, I just get it up off the ground at the back. So here I use the number plate frame, hang the plumb line, Run a string from the rear of the car up to the front. Rest on the rear tyre. As we bring a string into the front tyre, you can actually see it touches the leading edge of the tyre. It isn't touching the trailing edge. So that means this side is kicked outwards and we're aiming for toe in. It's just a matter of adjusting this and then rechecking with the string. Now from here we can see it touches the trailing edge of the tyre first without reaching the leading edge, which means it's now got some toe in. We can go and lock that in place. Now I'm just going to set up for some touch-up painting of the missing paint in the engine bay. I'm not going to go full bore with this. Maybe I'll do it one day, but most of the paint in the engine bay is pretty good. So I've kind of attempted to colour match and got a Toyota colour called Celica Red from a 1971 Toyota. Hopefully it's close to this because this is pretty sure it's a custom colour. Use some of this ancient printer paper to help protect stuff. Quality masking for the best protection possible. Jam some paper in all your holes. Well, here goes everything. Well, I need to wait for that paint to dry before I carry on. The weather's rolling in, the neighbourhood's getting loud, and I need to cut this episode short anyway because I need to do a cross-country trip twice to actually go and pick up the engine for the Legnum. So I guess I'll be working on that again soon. Hope to see you in the next one.